UK and beyond.
Join Britain's newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good evening, I'm Tatiana Sanchez in the GB newsroom. England have missed out on World Cup glory, losing the final to Spain 1-0. The Lionesses came agonisingly close to becoming the first England senior side to win the trophy since the men's team in 1966. The King praised their skill, determination and team spirit, and the Prime Minister said while it wasn't to be, they've already secured their legacy as game changers. Despite the loss, Jeannie Allard, a member of the original Lionesses team of 1972, still has high hopes for the future.
I think that whole of England is very emotional at the moment. It could have come home. Spain was just that little bit better, if I have to be honest. We should have just done take the chances what we had. It wasn't to be. It will come home eventually.
Elsewhere, the British Medical Association's calling for hospital managers to be regulated in a similar way to medical staff. The call comes in the wake of Lucy Letby's conviction. The BMA says it's deeply worrying that consultants who repeatedly raised concerns about the former nurse weren't listened to. Letby, who was found guilty of the murder of 7 babies and the attempted murder of 6 others, has indicated she won't attend her sentencing tomorrow. Former Justice Secretary Robert Buckland says she should be forced to listen.
My suggestion had been to make sure that there was a live link beamed into the cell, either sound and pictures, to ensure that Letby had nowhere to hide and that she, in effect, has to listen to what the judge is saying about the case. And most importantly, the victim personal statements, those impact statements that will really bring home, I think, to the wider world, the appalling, devastating impact of the loss of these innocent children, these innocent babies, have had upon dozens of families.
A new Brit school set to open in Bradford in West Yorkshire. The government's confirmed it'll be based on the award-winning performing arts Brit School in South London. It helped launch the careers of some of Britain's best-known artists and actors, including Adele, Amy Winehouse and Tom Holland. And finally, Russia's Luna 25 spacecraft has crashed on the moon. A rocket carrying the craft launched on the 11th of August, the country in a space race against India, whose Chandrayaan-3 is due to land on the satellite's south pole this week. This was Moscow's first mission to the moon in 47 years. The failed attempt is a blow to the country, which was hoping to return with the first samples of frozen water. This is GB News across the UK on TV, in your car on digital radio and on your smart speaker by saying play GB News. Now it's over to Free Speech Nation.
Comedy legend Graham Linehan's gig is cancelled twice at the Edinburgh Fringe. A woman is sacked from the Open University for questioning gender ideology, and Snow White becomes a feminist girl boss. This is Free Speech Nation. Thanks, everyone. Welcome to Free Speech Nation. I'm Nick Dixon, filling in for Saint Andrew Doyle. Yeah, he is a saint. Everyone's laughing at that, but it's factually true. Our glorious leader may be away, but it's still going to be a great show, because coming up, we talked to the co-founder of Comedy Unleashed about that cancelled Graham Linehan gig. We'll hear from the law teacher who was sacked from the Open University, and there are some shocking details in that story. We'll also be debating Snow White and the state of feminism. Can't see myself getting in any trouble there. And, of course, my fantastic panel will be answering questions from our wonderful studio audience, which is you guys. And my studio guests tonight are two comedians I'm affectionately calling Gammon and Gammoner. They love it. I didn't ask. It's Francis Foster and Paul Cox. Thanks for doing this, lads. How are we feeling?
I'm feeling good, mate. I'm delighted to be here for your debut, Nick.
Ah, thanks. Yeah, first time I've done FSN as host, and I said, let's make sure it's all straight white men. All right, that was a... failed slightly with Francis. Yeah. That's not a gay joke, by the way. He's mixed race.
Yeah, I am. Mother's from Venezuela.
And he'll be speaking in Spanish throughout, just for our international audience. Speaking of the audience, let's get some questions. And our first question, I believe, comes from Helen.
Hello.
Hello.
Is it acceptable to miss church to watch the football?
Controversial. So they're very topical. This is about the Women's World Cup. Bit of a sore point today, obviously. And a senior bishop from the Church of England told people it was fine to skip church and watch the women's football instead. What do we think? Francis, what do you reckon?
No, I think it is fine to skip church and watch the football, but not women's football.
Right. What was your take, Paul?
Well, I have a different... Nick, you know my view on this. I quite like women's football. I find it quite enjoyable. This is where you go.
Virtue signaler.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. However, it's the only thing that I'm slightly woke on. But it doesn't get in the way of church anyway, does it? The game kicks off at 11.
Many church services are around 10, 11.
Are they?
I know, because I'm usually in bed going, I should have gone to church. I feel bad. It's so early. Can they make it a bit later?
I'd imagine God was watching the football anyway, wasn't he?
Well, I don't know. It's too blasphemous for me, Paul. But, I mean, I do advise going to church, everyone. I mean, if you're not Christian, I suppose it's a bit weird. But I try and go, but it's a bit early in the morning. But I did go the other week. It was very, very good. Just plugging church there. Yeah, church.
Try church.
The weird thing about this article, to be very fair to the bishop, it later seemed that maybe she didn't mean that. She just meant you can work around the football with your particular service. But it just seemed like another example initially of the Church of England just being so woke. There was one bit where she said, don't worry, you know, if you don't want to see the score, just go to church. Like it was just a way of avoiding the score and the football. Did you watch it, Francis?
Of course I didn't, mate, no. I did what all...
Of course not.
No, of course not.
It's
against my character. Yeah. I did what all good people do, mate. I went to watch a morning showing of Oppenheimer.
Did you really?
Yeah, on a Sunday morning. That's what I like to see, death, destruction and mayhem.
Nice. Well, you would have seen some of that in the football. And, only 1-0. Yeah. Was it any good?
It was great. I really advise anyone to go and see it. It's the best movie I've seen in a long time.
OK, normally this show is like cutting-edge culture war stuff. It's just film reviews today. Like, go and see that film. All right, I mean, I think we've probably done enough on that question. Let's have a look at our next question from Darren.
Good evening, panel, and the People's Host.
Thank you very much. Yeah, the People's Host. I forgot to say it today. That's my new thing.
Should your boss be able to fire you if you don't have a six-pack?
Right, this is whether your boss should be able to fire you if you don't have a six-pack. And this was a guy called Andy Elliott, who's this kind of, like, American dude who's like, I sack anyone from my sales firm who doesn't have a six-pack. What do you reckon, Paul?
Well, no, of course not. Otherwise, I wouldn't have a job at any point ever, would I?
Believe in yourself, Paul. You can get there. You have to get there.
By the way, I don't know if we've got a picture of the guy. Perhaps we'll show in a minute. But he is hilarious. I mean, I like what he's done here. He thinks he's... I mean, he's selling cars for a living, right? He's like Tony Swiss. He's like Tony Swiss. You remember Tony Swiss?
Yeah.
Selling cars is like making love to a beautiful woman. He's that guy, but all roided up with micro-tackle and telling people that, you know, you can't be in my team unless you've got a six-pack. And he says anyone who disagrees with this shouldn't be in his team, and he's talking to the 1%. I don't know what 1% he thinks he's talking to, the 1% of people who want to sell cars with a six-pack. I don't know who they are. I've never met them. Anyone bought a car from someone specifically because of the way they physically look?
That's a good point, actually. Yeah, I think he's talking about having certain standards. I approve of it, even if I wouldn't make it. I approve of it on principle. I just approve of high standards, even if I can't. I used to work at a place where they made you do burpees if you were late. You had to do... Originally, they fined you, which is probably not even legal, and then you had to do burpees, like 20 burpees. It was that kind of environment. Tough, macho. It's like a kind of Wolf of Wall Street thing. What do you think, Francis?
What, was that when you worked at the council?
Yeah. Tough Haringey Council, tough days. Yeah, what did you make of it? Do you have a six-pack?
No. Number one, I don't have a six-pack. And number two, look, there's nothing wrong with being gay, but just be honest about it. Do you know what I mean?
Shots fired.
Yeah, look...
You think it's gay to have a six-pack and sell cars?
I think it's pretty gay to demand that every single one of your team is absolutely ripped to the bone. I'd understand it if he went women as well, but he doesn't. He just says blokes. Why, mate? Just be honest.
Because women aren't even allowed at the firm. That's like a given.
Oh, right, OK.
So it's just like men with six-packs only. Has anyone seen this guy, Andy Elliott? He's actually... I hadn't seen him before. He's actually quite big on YouTube, and it's weird because it's the kind of thing I watch. He's a kind of like an Andrew Tate kind of guy, but he's like, hey, you got to have a six-pack. One of my favourite things he said, he goes, it's not fat-shaming. Most of my family are fat. I was like, is that better? That seems worse, what you've just said. I have a lot of fat friends, guys, honestly. All right, I mean, I don't know, anything else on this topic? I'm not sure how long we're supposed to spend on each. This is my first...
He is brilliantly hilarious, though, isn't he? He is brilliant. That is hilarious. I mean, what a way to attract attention, by the way. Like I say, if you see him, he looks like Ken from Barbie, which none of us have seen here, obviously. However, it's all sort of fake tan and turkey teeth and I assume a six-pack, but I'm not sure how it lends itself to selling cars. If I saw that man walk up to me, I would walk away.
Yeah. Ideally, we'd have had, like, a video of it, but imagine, guys, it's a man with a six-pack trying to sell cars. I mean, that's pretty much it. Gone.
Are they going to do like... Do you remember, like, Abercrombie and Fitch did around 20 years ago, where they used to have topless models? And the moment you used to walk in, there'd be just these 22-year-old guys with their shirt. Don't look at me like
I missed that. I've got no idea what you're talking about.
Don't look at me like you know that. You don't know what I'm talking about.
Do you mean Hooters?
No. That was a very different vibe. Okay. Do you think it's just guys with, like, their tops off selling you, like, a Citroen?
Yeah, right. I suddenly had a moment where I felt so bad of what I've done to Andrew's show. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like 5 minutes in, and we're talking about topless girls at, like, six-packs. Andrew's just, like, on holiday going, this was a mistake. He wants it to be about 15th century literature and stuff like that. Anyway, maybe we should move on for that question. We've got one from Catherine next, I believe. Catherine. Oh, hi, Catherine.
Still with bodies, actually.
OK.
Is the song Fat-Bottomed Girls inappropriate?
Wow, I thought we were going to move on from the topic, but we're very much doubling down. So this is one of Queen's best loved songs, Fat Bomb Girls, but it's been suspiciously dropped from the Greatest Hits collection, is what we're talking about here. It's not exactly Love of My Life, Paul, but should it be in there, Fat Bottom Girls?
So the idea is that it's been dropped from their greatest hits. So we have to assume, in order to indulge in this story, that Queen haven't got many other greatest hits, which is exactly what you said. Queen have got so many hits they can afford to drop it. But let's say they've dropped it because it's offensive in some way. It's clearly not offensive. And I thought we loved fatties now. I thought fatties were all in. I mean, you see Lizzo, fat dancers, I mean, the big bums. Everybody's fat now, aren't they? So I don't see what the problem is.
Yeah. Well, I suppose I'd have to rename it Body Positivity Girls, which doesn't really scan. What do you think, Francis?
No, yeah, it doesn't really scan, mate. And as a fan of the larger lady... look, I'm progressive.
We've learned a lot about you tonight. None of it's savoury, but go on.
Yeah, none of it is savoury, mate. Well, that's why I'm in TV, do you know what I mean? Yeah. I was waiting for that. No, if I was really bad, I'd be at the BBC. But,
the thinking man's Jimmy Savile. Go on.
Exactly, mate.
So you like the bigger girl.
I raise less money for charity.
Queen.
That didn't go well. But yeah, no, I honestly don't... I'm actually a huge Queen fan. I think that Freddie Mercury was the greatest frontman of all time. Mm-hmm. In particular, if you look at just the sheer breadth of his music, right the way from when they started, he could do everything. He could sing ballads, he could sing hard rock, he could sing opera, he could sing disco and funk, and towards the end of his life, when he was dying, he produced some of the greatest music that I've ever heard. I don't think Fat Bottom Girls is the best stuff that they've ever had. I just think it's indicative now of our culture. When someone drops a song, everyone now thinks it's because, oh, it's problematic, when actually just might be that it's not one of their better songs.
Song. Right, what do the audience think? Do you like the song? Yeah. Yeah? We like the song? You think it shouldn't have been dropped?
No.
No. What's the best Queen song? Is it Love of My Life or is it Bohemian Rhapsody or something else?
We are the champions.
We are the champions, just being contrary.
Yeah.
Wasn't one of the options I offered, but all right. Well, we got a question now from Andrew, presumably not Andrew Doyle, videoing in. Question, why are you ruining my show?
Lovely to be at GBNews. Have Uni pizza ovens taken virtual signalling to the next level?
Oh, yeah, so this is Uni Pizza Ovens, who say that every year they celebrate Hawaiian Pizza Day on August 20th. And this year they're urging people to donate to the Hawaii tragedy, but also to make pizzas. And to be fair, they have donated 10,000 to the Red Cross, to, you know, in support of the tragedy. But what did you make of this one, Francis?
Well, the Hawaiian pizza is an abomination and it should be banned. It's not proper pizza. It's not. And if you have pineapple on a pizza, then, as far as I'm concerned, you are wrong, number one, right? That's just obvious. But number two, I think this is quite a nice thing. What's happened in Maui was obviously a tragedy. I think it's over 100 people now have lost their lives. It's awful. They're trying to do something good. But actually, if they wanted to do something good for future generations, not just for Hawaii, get rid of the Hawaiian pizza. It's wrong.
Shots fired, really? You don't like the whole combination of the Hawaiian pizza?
No, it's an insult.
Mate, who likes the Hawaiian pizza?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I'm never appearing on this show ever again.
Well, I didn't want to tell you, Francis, but there's been an email anyway. But, yeah, I love the Hawaiian pizza. I mean, what's wrong with it? I mean, if Lewis Shape was here, he'd talk about how it's carbs and it's going to kill you because it's not raw meat. But basically, I really like Hawaiian pizza, always liked it. So you're against the pizza, you're pro-virtue signalling, but against pineapples.
On pizza?
Mate. I knew you were a controversial figure. I've heard about Francis, far-right, anti-pizza, so go on.
I still like Francis, even though I like women's football, and I like pineapple on pizza.
I don't like you, mate.
It's a one-way street, unfortunately. I still like you, mate. Yeah. But this is so cynical, this. It's incredibly cynical. Before they say they first of all, they slightly mention they've raised $10,000 it is, by the way, which is next to nothing for a huge business like that. And then they say, buy our pizza, buy our ovens, make a Hawaiian pizza, invite your mates round, make sure they eat the Hawaiian pizza that you've made using our stuff, and if you can, get them to donate as well. It's so cynical. They said they invented Hawaiian Pizza Day.
Actually, do you know what? I've gone off them. You're right, mate. Screw them.
I actually didn't think it was that bad. As far as these things go, virtue signalling does get a lot worse. I mean, I'm sick of woke corporations. Is everyone sick of woke corporations? Yeah. You can feel free to just go, hey, you know, the camera can't really see if you put your hands up. I'm making it interactive. I'm so sick of woke corporations. It's so ridiculous. We know, like you know, the ESG scores. You know, where everyone's got like a certain like woke score, and actually like Elon Musk, Tesla had a worse ESG score than Philip Morris, who's a tobacco company, because what they do, they just hire a few sort of diverse people. They go, look how great we are. It's like, yeah, but you're killing people in the third world or whatever it is. You know,
mad, isn't it? You know, like trans drag queen dances smoking cigarette in front of small children is higher than someone who sells cars. I mean, they don't, by the way. I just made all that first bit up just in case.
That does sound like a male headline, mate.
Someone who sells cars with a six-pack.
But, you know, instead of someone who's selling a car that's saving the planet.
Yeah, it is totally weird. So I'm totally against virtue signalling. I didn't think this was a particularly bad instance of it. But anyway, all right, that's the pineapple pizza story beaten to death. Let's have a look at one more question from Pete, I believe. Hi, Pete.
Yes, hi there. OK, so should you face disciplinary action if you use the wrong pronoun to address someone in the workplace?
The key question. This is about NHS workers being told they're privileged if they don't have to worry if they don't wonder about what pronouns people might be in advance. So if they just assume the pronouns, they're in trouble. And apparently the official guidance says it's oppressive to use the wrong pronoun. And some have even threatened employees with disciplinary action. So, I don't know, did you see this story, Francis?
Yeah, I did see it.
Okay.
And I agree with it. I think if you don't use someone's personal pronouns, you should be executed, mate.
Yeah.
Just get rid of them. You're clearly a Nazi. What's going to happen if you're just going to be left to roam the planet, have more Nazi babies, and really, or at the very least, just get them castrated.
Yeah,
pretty tough words from Francis, but I agreed with all of it. What do you think, Paul?
It's like working with Lewis, this is. I'm the first time I felt like a moderator here.
You're the straight man.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, this. But, no, of course, I mean, how anyone can remember all the pronouns anyway is beyond me. There's nothing wrong with being polite. I mean, I literally just say there and them to describe absolutely everything now, because you never know who you're going to offend. But of course you shouldn't in the workplace. And the idea that privilege has changed to a point that we live such a luxury life now that privilege is only for people who don't know what their pronouns are or never have to think about it, that's mental on its own. I mean, there are people that think this stuff up for a living. That's a privilege. That's mental. I think where we've got to now is just laughable. I don't think we can continue down this path.
And what's particularly disturbing is when it gets into things like the NHS, when they're so ideologically captured. And we've seen with the horrific stories lately that there's plenty of things the NHS should be focusing on and they're missing. And then you wonder, I'm not saying there's a direct link, but you wonder, how is it that a struggling NHS can be focused on nonsense like this? I know, Francis, you took a very pronoun stance. Have you changed your mind in the last couple of minutes?
No, mate. We need to get these things right and then move on to things like neurosurgery. Right. We're only going to get brain tumours done if we can get pronouns sorted.
Yes.
You think, you go small, you think big.
Yeah, exactly. Day one, they show the junior doctor the gingerbread rainbow man.
Yeah.
They say, point to the right place on this.
Yeah.
I don't know how it works. And then nail the pronouns.
Yep.
Then day 2, keyhole surgery.
Yeah, day 3, leukemia. That's how it works, man. But
get the basics right. Back to basics.
Get the
like
basics.
John Major said.
Yeah, exactly. Let's involve Indewina Curry in it, mate, as well.
You're right. Remember back to basics? Am I from the right? Go on. You wanted to follow up?
Yeah. Okay. So
I'm not sure if this is even allowed.
that reminds me of the Addams Family. One of my favourites in the Addams Family was Cousin It. Maybe that's the one to use.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. Cousin It.
Nice.
Just calls everyone It.
There was that absurd thing, wasn't there, where on a 999 call you were supposed to check, what are your pronouns first? Like, no, never mind, like, where is it bleeding?
Imagine
Did you hear that? That's a real thing. That's a real thing.
Imagine that in the acronym for stroke, and you've got... What's the acronym for stroke? You've got to check their face or whatever. Imagine the first one being, is it a male?
Yeah. I mean, it's beyond satire, but that is actually true. They say, but rather than just saying sir or madam, check first. What are your pronouns? You know, and then are you breathing? It's like Francis said, first things first.
Yes, first things first. It's like, you know, if you're a nurse and you're working in an antenatal clinic, you've got to check, you know, the people who are giving birth, you need to check what sex they've been assigned, mate.
All right, well, I think we absolutely nailed that first section. All right, and we'll go to the break. Next on Free Speech Nation, I talked to the co-founder of Comedy Unleashed about why he ended up having to put a show on outside the Scottish Parliament. First, let's have a look at the weather.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, I'm Dan Stroud, and this is your latest GB News forecast from the Met Office. So we have high pressure to the south and low pressure to the north and west. It kind of leaves the UK in between weather systems. But this area of low pressure is starting to actually push thicker cloud and outbreaks of rain in across Northern Ireland and northwest Scotland. Further to the south across England and Wales, largely clear skies. And under those clear skies, we do see some low cloud, mist and fog developing by dawn. Overnight temperatures remaining comfortably in double figures right the way across the board. Now, it's a bright start come Monday morning, with any low cloud, mist and fog across the south quickly lifting and breaking, leaving a pleasant enough day for many across the south. Further north, we have that rain edging in from the west, and that rain will become locally heavy by the course of the afternoon. Temperatures on Monday generally slightly higher than the values we saw on Sunday, with highs of 25 across the south and 21 further north. So that band of cloud and rain continues to sink south on Tuesday, and this kind of sort of sets the scene for the rest of the week as low pressure gradually wins out, turning increasingly showery for all by midweek, and temperatures peaking on Wednesday, particularly across the south and east. Bye for now.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. I'm Nick Dixon, doing my best to fill the massive shoes of Dr. Andrew Doyle. Now, as you've probably heard, a gig featuring Graham Linehan, the writer of classic sitcoms like Father Ted and Black Books, was cancelled by an Edinburgh Fringe venue because of Linehan's views on the trans issue. The show was moved to a new venue, which also cancelled. And they ended up having to stage the gig outdoors outside the Scottish Parliament, which was quite amusing in some ways, yet also an indictment of a festival that's supposed to be all about free expression. And I'm joined now by the man who made the gig happen against all odds, co-founder of Comedy Unleashed, Andy Shaw. Andy, oh, there. Yeah, let's have a clap for Andy. He deserves it. Andy, good to catch up on national TV. Can you give us a quick summation of what happened from your perspective?
Yeah, well, originally, Andrew and I decided that we'd do a gig at very short notice at Edinburgh to put all the cancelled comedians on. So we thought we'd invite, Dapper Lass, Jerry Sadowitz, Alistair Williams, a whole bunch of people who've been cancelled over the years, and do a sort of uncancelled at Edinburgh. The problem we had was that we decided to do this about 3 weeks ago, which is a bit short notice when you're trying to book venues, get people organised at the height of the Edinburgh Fringe. So we did it a bit short notice, but luckily a guy who lives in Leith said, I can get a venue for you, which we got booked. And we got a bunch of people already in Edinburgh, plus Graham and Alistair to come up to Edinburgh to put the gig on. Then on Tuesday morning, just before, 2 days before the gig, the venue put out a fairly punchy statement on Instagram saying that we were going to violate their space when they found out that Graham was the cancelled comedian that we'd sort of put some raps around. So we had 2 days to try and find another venue. And we did. On the Tuesday night, we found one. Then by Wednesday lunchtime, they'd cancelled as well. And in fact, they asked us to keep them out of the news because it'd become quite a big news issue by then. Which we promised to do. We tried to find another venue, and luckily loads of people rallied round in Edinburgh, which was really made it. And I've got to give real thanks, particularly to Matthew and Marion, because without them, this gig wouldn't have happened. And we nearly got a church hall, we nearly got a church, we nearly got the Edinburgh City Council chambers, but they couldn't get enough staff, and they needed to rearrange the chairs. All the parks, all the empty spaces were full of fringe acts, or we couldn't get police permission. And the only place we could get, the only place where there was space and we could get permission was right outside the Holyrood Parliament. So it was quite unusual.
Yeah, and that wasn't even a political point, was it? You weren't trying to make a point by doing it outside Parliament. That was just where you ended up. And it wasn't, but it was just like the political point was maybe a bonus.
It was. You know, I'm not a great believer in fate, Nick, but it did end up making accidentally a political point, which was really around freedom of speech and free expression in the arts, and sort of bringing back the original idea of the fringe. To celebrate all the wacky, the experimentative, the risk taking, and all the rest of it, and in fact, it's something that should be celebrated, particularly when so many people come from abroad to Edinburgh, and Edinburgh is so well known as a festival that celebrates free expression in the arts. It ended up making, by accident, a political point.
Yeah, and I said you should have won the Spirit of the Fringe Award, which if anyone doesn't know, that's like an award you get for... Because the Fringe is all based on sort of experimental stuff, people putting on shows in strange ways. So if anyone should have won the Spirit of the Fringe, it'll be you. I don't think you actually will win it. And as you say, the venue, when they cancelled you, they actually used the word cancelled in massive block capitals in case anyone was in any doubt that cancel culture exists. And the other thing I thought was funny is that there was this conspiracy theory going around that you had planned all this, like they knew that they'd be cancelled and they'd get publicity. And I find that quite unlikely because it's co-founded by Andrew Doyle, and they're saying, oh, they picked a venue that was LGBTQ friendly because they knew it would be cancelled. I'm like, really? A gay person knew it would be cancelled at a gay-friendly venue, and his master plan was that it would all be cancelled and they'd get more... So can you just confirm that was never your master plan?
It wasn't. I mean, it's just, you know, if we'd have planned it, we'd have been much better organised. And in fact, it took, 2 days out of my life to try and reorganise things. And as I said, it was really only down to people in Edinburgh to sort of rally around and find other venues. And we were trying to catch up with the situation. We thought that it would be fun to reveal Graham at Edinburgh. It would be his Edinburgh debut. It's actually only the 5th gig that he's ever done. Since he was cancelled from his own musical, Father Ted the Musical, which you couldn't get on the West End, he's taken to stand-up. And Graham has been coming to the club in London really to hone his art as a stand-up, to really bring his skills as a comic writer into stand-up. And it's really beautiful to see because he brings a different sensibility to it. He sort of takes the little vignettes of everyday life and sort of gently twists them into absurdity. And it's nice bringing that into the live form of stand-up comedy where you can get an instant reaction. And we thought it would be, as I said, the original idea was to do a sort of cancelled comedian's gig, with everybody advertised. And then we thought, actually, we'll sort of unveil him at the gig and we can create a bit of sort of marketing mystery around it. As it happened, we sold out really quickly anyway. And we just thought, well, we'll just tell people. So it's just how things worked out.
Just really quickly, what was your view on the overall reaction? Because I saw some comedians defending it. There was Joe Caulfield saying, I'm proud to be from Leith, whereas Henning Vane tweeted that it's a real mistake to celebrate the cancellation of a fellow comedian. And so comedians have been a bit less vocal than they normally are about how great this cancellation was. Maybe they're on the fence waiting to see which way the wind blows. What do you think?
I think you're probably right. The thing that's really noticeable is that it's been in fact, it's been an international news story. And the silence from comedians, comedy critics, the industry is really astounding. And I think it shows how much it's become a corporate event. It's not so... I was speaking to somebody who's lived in Edinburgh for years and seen the Edinburgh Fringe develop, and it used to be lots of sort of amateurs in community halls, and it used to be much more of a sort of a community gutsy amateur people going and trying stuff out and experimenting, and now it's more of a sort of corporate funnel that people sort of build up their act, try and get it in front of the TV commissioners, try and get the good critics, and I think it's shut out all of that creativity. So I think, sort of accidentally, we've sort of brought the Spirit of the Fringe back. And maybe we should do it all year round. In fact, the people in Edinburgh are now saying there's such a demand for it that we should set up a regular Comedy Unleashed night in Edinburgh. And we may well do that.
That would be brilliant. All right, thanks for joining us, Andy. Thanks. We can do a round of applause for Andy. I think we should. So that was co-founder of Comedy Unleashed, Andy Shaw. He's a total legend. And what do you think, guys? Do you follow this whole thing? Presumably you did.
Yeah, I did, and I did a video about it because I was so angry and disgusted at what actually happened to Graham. Comedians purport to be free thinkers. They purport to be people who punch up, who challenge authority, but what they are is the worst type of conformist possible. Petty-minded, shallow, only really interested in their own career progression, and actually will only pick a topic if it suits them and the industry itself. Basically, what I'm saying is, I'd go to that festival, I'd have the entire place napalmed, and there wouldn't be one innocent loss of life. So it'd be great, mate. That's what I'm saying.
I wish you wouldn't hold back, Francis. This is Free Speech Nation. Man, I thought I felt like that, but you're even more... You said all that stuff on Joe Rogan as well, which is hilarious. Yeah. Francis was on the Joe Rogan podcast, and all the comedians were so mad that he told it like it is. It is a very conformist industry now, and that's one reason I sort of distanced myself from it. But, Paul, what do you think?
Well, the one thing I found most interesting was those that spoke up for the cancellation. And the people who have no fear of cancellation itself are those that never believe they could ever be cancelled because they believe they're on the right side of history or the right side of the argument, the right side of the debate. Comedy and art itself is not about that. It's not about whether you're right or wrong. It's about what you create, how you inspire, the reaction you get from it. If you just had the same comedy week in, week out, that talked about, I don't know, pronouns, for instance...
You'd have Channel 4.
You'd have Channel 4.
Yeah. All right, well, that seems like a good ending. And let's go to the break. Next on Free Speech Nation, we talked to writer and commentator Lois McClatchy about the backlash against the forthcoming Snow White movie and whether people are sick of feminism in films. I'm sure that'll go very well for me. Don't go away.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not
believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. Later in the show, I'll be turning agony uncle with the help of my panel, Francis Foster and Paul Cox, to help with your unfiltered dilemmas. So email us at gbviews@gbnews.com and we'll try desperately to answer your questions. Now, who'd have thought the latest person to be cancelled would be Snow White? It's about time, if you ask me. Don't even get me started on those dwarves. But more specifically, Rachel Zegler, who plays Snow White in the new woke remake, has been in trouble for a series of statements about the movie in which she emphasised that this version will not be about Snow White looking for love. In fact, she went as far as calling the prince a stalker and suggested all his scenes could easily be cut. Imagine being the actor who plays that guy. Instead, she claims it's all about Snow White becoming the brave leader she knows she can be. But is that what we want from a Snow White film, and does it really reflect modern women? Well, let's ask social commentator and writer Lois McClatchy-Miller, who joins me now. So, Lois, you wrote a brilliant article about the girl boss and the decline of the girl boss, and I believe it had a massive impact on some people that read it.
That's true. Well, women across social media have been giving a bit of backlash to these comments that Rachel Zegler made, because she sets up this archetype of what a successful woman should be, and she says it's a girl boss, it's someone who's independent and empowered and can do it all by herself, no man necessary, and girls don't need their Prince Charming. Well, I wrote an article in response to say that actually a lot of women want a Prince Charming. They don't want to be doing this all by themselves, and they actually want to be part of an empowered couple who is able to support each other in each other's masculine and feminine strengths.
Yeah.
One of my friends actually read this article and quit her job as a result of this, because she said that she realised that she was not getting fulfillment and support as a woman in this kind of very big, high-paid but high-intense corporate job, and she said that actually she would like to derive meaningful fulfillment from her life from investing in relationships and family.
OK, that's an amazing result from an article. I write an article, people say, oh, that was good, Nick, you know what I mean? Like, oh, I might follow your Substack for free or something. People reading Lois, it's like, I'm quitting, I'm out. It's like a Jerry Maguire moment. Like, I don't want to be a go. Because basically what, she was sick of this idea of, like, corporate, like, the careers, everything. Is she now going to have a family, or do we not know?
Well, I think that's the intention. She says that her whole world was sucked up into this corporate job, and she was looking at other females in this career who are mothers, and they were getting a hard time in the workplace for, you know, leaving as late as 6 p.m., as early as 6 p.m., they thought. And there was just no space for her to thrive as, you know, the mother that she wanted to be, and to have those other fulfilling parts of her life. So this feminism that is championing the girl boss is really not working out for her or for many others. And you point out in your piece, and you've said it in other places, that feminists used to be pro-marriage and pro-children, and actually they were even pro-Christian, which people have forgotten about. And now it's sort of seen as that's all bad. Well, you used to be able to be a feminist and sort of be a mother at the same time. Apparently that's gone, and that used to exist. Right. Feminism has really taken a wrong turn. So the earliest feminists, they were seeking to build a society that fits around the needs of women. So that's ending kind of maternity discrimination and allowing women to be wives and mothers and still have fulfilling work, you know, with flexible hours or whatever they needed. Somewhere along the line, feminism turned into this kind of Carrie Bradshaw, Sex and the City type feminism, where it was all about living a hedonistic lifestyle, not having commitments, not being part of a committed relationship, but just being able to do whatever they wanted. And this brand of feminism is the one that's kind of followed us into the 21st century. But actually, it's made us a very lonely and isolated nation. If you look at our statistics, a lot of people who are living by themselves and not by choice, by circumstance. And they would like to have a family, but haven't been given the support to do so.
Because some people would say that feminism at its inception is wrong. I wouldn't dare say that on my first go on this show, but, you know, people might say it because it's a sort of left-wing ideology and it pits men against women from the start. You might say it was necessary to achieve things like the vote, but then again, men didn't used to have the vote before 1918. They had to go through the First World War for men under 30 who didn't own property to get it. So my contention might be, did we need feminism, or did we just need legislation? But anyway, it's probably a big topic. But you would say perhaps that feminism's just gone awry, and actually the government as well has not supported mothers with policies as well, right?
Right. Well, I think that any solution which pits sexes against each other is a flawed solution. So that goes for extreme feminism, which says that Prince Charming is needless and doesn't need a scene, and it goes for kind of the other extreme of patriarchy, which gives women, you know, no rights and no meaning and no equality. So what we need are solutions, you know, that represent the kind of marriage that successfully allow both sexes to flourish in their unique capacity. But yeah, the government, as you raised, it hasn't really done enough to support women in that capacity. They've been very GDP focused when they look at solutions. So they have, looked at solutions to get mothers straight back into the workplace after they have a child and get her back earning money and outsource that childcare to another entity also making profit. Whereas I would love to see solutions which actually allow women to be credited and supported, maybe through tax systems, maybe through kind of just social credit, to be able to stay at home and be rewarded for that investment in the next generation. Because we know from the statistics that is the best thing you can be doing for the advancement of the future.
Okay, and just probably lastly on this, do you think there really is a backlash? Because there was a backlash online against this Rachel Zegler, but she also just might be a young, annoying person. If you look at some other things she'd done, she'd had a go at J.K. Rowling for being transphobic, and she'd tried to cancel loads of people. So she's just kind of woke and annoying and young, and maybe she'll learn. But you felt it was indicative of this larger sort of backlash against this kind of excessive feminism. Is that just wishful thinking from you, or do you think that's really going to happen?
No, I think it's part of a trend. We want our Prince Charming back. Sydney Sweeney, who was in Euphoria, a 25-year-old gorgeous model and actress, she said that she has all the success in her career in the world, but what she really wants is a family. And Talisa from NDub, she's come out and said recently that she wants committed partnerships now. And so many women who have been in an industry which promotes that girl boss feminism are actually saying, hang on, this isn't good for women, and we want partnerships, marriage, and support to be women in our own capacity back.
Yeah, well, I kind of hope it's turning, but I'm not 100% convinced. I mean, you're quite traditional, aren't you? You're Christian. You believe in the traditional marriage. You just got married as well, haven't you?
I did just get married. Thank you.
I thought people were going to clap then, but they actually didn't. My question as well, lastly, is do you think men can actually be won around there? Because men are now they've been watching Andrew Tate, and they've had enough of feminism, and they're watching red pill content on YouTube, and they've kind of had enough of this whole thing. And do you think you can win back men into sort of the traditional arrangement and marriage? Because now lots of men are just thinking it's not worth it. We've got no fault divorce. We've got custody issues. They're not even bothering. How do you win them back?
Right. Well, like I said before, I think solutions which pit the sexes against each other and put one over and above the other are doomed to failure. So I think that a swing back that goes too far and diminishes women to just objects or kind of has this very harsh generalizing attitude to all women, I think that's just as damaging as the extreme feminism, which did essentially the same to men. So I think the only solution which will allow both sexes to thrive is to have that complementarianism, to have solutions where men and women generally get along, and that masculine energy that is, the Prince Charming energy is not kind of dismissed, but equally the kind of strength that it takes a woman to birth a child and feed them and raise them, that's not dismissed as meaningless either, but both are equally valued.
OK, well, that seems terribly reasonable, doesn't it? Lois McClatchy-Miller, everyone. All right. Thanks, Lois. Next on Free Speech Nation, women's football expert Toby Young joins me to talk about the Lionesses. So see you in a minute.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle.
Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. Now, obviously, the Lionesses are a massive topic today, but do you care? And if you didn't, would you dare admit it? Because it seems like women's football has become the new current thing that we all have to celebrate if we don't want to get cancelled. Even Prince William had to apologise and explain why he wasn't going to attend the final. So to discuss this, I'm joined by General Secretary of the Free Speech Union and co-host of the excellent Weekly Sceptic podcast, Toby Young, who's written a cheeky piece for The Spectator entitled, Am I Allowed to Make Fun of Women's Football? So, Toby, did you get the answer to your question?
Yeah, the answer's no, Nick. If you made fun of women's football today, I think you risk being sent to prison for at least 2 years. One of the hallmarks of our soft totalitarian society is that there are certain things you're forbidden to enjoy, like, the poetry of Rudyard Kipling, the novels of P.G. Wodehouse, the jokes, the stand-up routine of Graham Linehan, completely verboten. But there are also certain things it's mandatory to enjoy. You're not allowed not to enjoy them. And women's football, I'm afraid, falls into that category. I imagine there are plenty of men, football fans, who were under a 3-line whip this morning to watch the final, and woe betide the man who joked to his wife or his girlfriend that there were nail technicians on the kind of medical team, or that when a woman was taken off to get her hair fixed, he made a gag about, having to get it curled or permed or something along those lines. If it was forbidden to joke about women's football today of all days.
Yeah, and I condemn that misogyny from you there, Toby, absolutely. But, there was, in the Sadiq Khan advert, it was like, if you said women's football wasn't that good, that was considered basically one notch from sexual assault. And someone had to step in and go, mate, why are you saying that? And then John Sopel tweeted that, why are Rishi Sunak and Prince William, why are they not at the game? And it's a disgrace and all this kind of thing. So it's almost like when Jordan Peterson talked about compelled speech. Remember when he said that? It's like you're compelled to like the women's football. But, Toby, for broadcast regulations, I also have to say, aren't you being a killjoy? I mean, they're a great team. People are loving it across the country. And here's you in the corner going, I want to just mock women's football.
Yeah, I think luckily we just about have enough free speech in our society to protect people who want to have a bit of a laugh about women's football. For me, it's not that I want to belittle the achievement of the Lionesses or in any way discourage teenage girls from playing football. It's just the element of compulsion, as you say, which slightly gets my goat. It's this notion that you have to enjoy it, you have no choice, that there's something remiss about Rishi Sunak and Prince William for not going to Australia, for not being enthusiastic enough. And it's one thing to be lectured by women about this. They have a dog in the fight, that's understandable. It's when men get their fingers in your face and tell you you should be enjoying it. And if you describe it as a bit of a joke, then you must be a misogynist, about to rape somebody. When men lecture you about it, it's as though they don't really care themselves about women's football. They probably don't know much about it, to be honest. They're just trying to differentiate themselves from kind of less enlightened, less sophisticated men, lower down the kind of class hierarchy than them. There's an element of snobbery involved, which really kind of sticks in my craw.
Yeah, I got that. I was in my football team and I said, the keepers aren't that good. And someone in my football team rebuked me, said, they've got a lot better, Nick. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. It was like the Sadiq Khan ad campaign. It was like, mate. And I think they should make the goals smaller. I think it is too hard. You have to be like a 6'4" acrobat to jump around those goals. They're massive. And did you also see the church when they said it's OK if you want to miss church and go to the football? Or then I heard then the bishop actually didn't exactly say that. What did you make of that?
Yeah, it's as though worshipping at the altar of gender equality is now more important than worshipping at the altar of Jesus Christ, even if you're an Anglican bishop, which was quite something. When I wrote my Spectator article, I talked a bit about Megan Rapinoe's miss. So she is probably the most celebrated member of the US women's football team. She's incredibly mouthy. She's super woke. She won the Presidential Medal of Honor from Joe Biden. She thinks that biological men should be able to compete against biological women in professional football. She never sings the national anthem. She, more than anyone else, I think, has kind of passionately argued that women should be paid the same as men and that there really is no difference between women's and men's football. If anything, women's football is better because they're more successful than the US men's team. So to see her miss a penalty, and it was the last penalty in the penalty shootout against Sweden, effectively, smoothing the way for Sweden to the quarterfinals. It was just glorious. It was just too great not to celebrate.
Yeah, well, I see where you're coming from. Obviously, I completely disagree. But thanks, Toby. Toby Young, everyone. So, co-host of the brilliant Weekly Skeptic podcast, and the host is very good-looking and talented. We won't say who it is. So, Francis, we've established you didn't watch the game. Paul, did you see it? I can't remember what we said.
Yes, I did watch the game.
You're a big fan, aren't you? Did you disagree with Toby on anything?
I didn't disagree with Toby on anything, actually, because the question to Toby was, should we be made to watch it? And under no circumstances should we be made to watch or enjoy something if we don't want to, based on some ideology. So, no, I don't disagree at all.
What about the audience? Did you love the women's football? Who likes it? One guy.
I think Prince William should have gone to Australia.
You think he should have gone?
I think he should have gone.
Would they have won if he'd gone?
No wonder Australia and Northern Ireland get annoyed that they don't get looked after or supported.
You're right. Well, yeah. It's kind of weird. OK, what do you think that, Francis? Because people are saying, like, he should have gone to show it was important. But isn't the fact that he didn't go and the fact that Downing Street didn't have enough bunting, doesn't that just show that it actually isn't that important because there isn't a history behind it? Not because we hate women, but because there isn't the same history.
Look, first of all, I think Toby's a bit of a hypocrite, right? This is a man who pays to go and watch QPR, all right? All right. So let's make that absolutely clear. Women's football is better than watching QPR, Nick. Okay. Number one, right?
Well, we're going to have to just go on number one. Sorry, Francis. I think that point was strong enough because we've got to do the next break. So that's it for the first hour of Free Speech Nation. But don't go away because there's much more to come. But we've got to catch up with the latest weather. So we'll see you in a minute.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, I'm Dan Stroud, and this is your latest GB News forecast from the Met Office. So we have high pressure to the south and low pressure to the north and west. It kind of leaves the UK in between weather systems. But this area of low pressure is starting to actually push thicker cloud and outbreaks of rain in across Northern Ireland and northwest Scotland. Further to the south across England and Wales, largely clear skies. And under those clear skies, we do see some low cloud, mist and fog developing by dawn. Overnight temperatures remaining comfortably in double figures right the way across the board. Now, it's a bright start come Monday morning, with any low cloud, mist and fog across the south quickly lifting and breaking, leaving a pleasant enough day for many across the south. Further north, we have that rain edging in from the west, and that rain will become locally heavy by the course of the afternoon. Temperatures on Monday generally slightly higher than the values we saw on Sunday, with highs of 25 across the south and 21 further north. So that band of cloud and rain continues to sink south on Tuesday, and this kind of sort of sets the scene for the rest of the week as low pressure gradually wins out, turning increasingly showery for all by midweek, and temperatures peaking on Wednesday, particularly across the south and east. Bye for now.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel. Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
Is the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Still plenty more to come on Free Speech Nation, but first let's get a quick news update from Tatiana Sanchez.
Good evening, this is the latest from the GB Newsroom. England have missed out on World Cup glory, losing the final to Spain 1-0. The Lionesses came agonisingly close to becoming the first England senior side to win the trophy since the men's team in 1966. The King praised their skill, determination and team spirit, and the Prime Minister said while it wasn't to be, they've already secured their legacy as game changers. Despite the loss, Jeannie Allett, a member of the original Lionesses team of 1972, still has hopes for the future.
I think that whole of England is very emotional at the moment. It could have come home. Spain was just that little bit better, if I have to be honest. We should have just done take the chances what we had. It wasn't to be. It will come home eventually.
In other news, the British Medical Association is calling for hospital managers to be regulated in a similar way to medical staff. The call comes in the wake of Lucy Letby's conviction. The BMA says it's deeply worrying that consultants who repeatedly raised concerns about the former nurse weren't listened to. Letby, who was found guilty of the murder of 7 babies and the attempted murder of 6 others, has indicated she won't attend her sentencing tomorrow. Former Justice Secretary Robert Buckland says she should be forced to listen.
My suggestion had been to make sure that there was a live link beamed into the cell, either sound or sound and pictures, to ensure that Letby had nowhere to hide and that she, in effect, has to listen to what the judge is saying about the case. And most importantly, the victim personal statements, those impact statements that will really bring home, I think, to the wider world, the appalling, devastating impact of the loss of these innocent children, these innocent babies, have had upon dozens of families.
A new Brit school set to open in Bradford in West Yorkshire. The government's confirmed it'll be based on the award-winning performing arts Brit School in South London. It helped launch the careers of some of Britain's best-known artists and actors, including Adele, Amy Winehouse and Tom Holland. Russia's Luna 25 spacecraft has crashed on the moon. A rocket carrying the craft launched on the 11th of August, the country in a space race against India, whose Chandrayaan-3 is due to land on the satellite's south pole this week. This was Moscow's first mission to the moon in 47 years. The failed attempt is a blow to the country, which was hoping to return with the first samples of frozen water. This is GB News across the UK on TV, in your car on digital radio and on your smart speaker by simply saying play GB News. Now it's back to Free Speech Nation.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. Let's get some more questions from our wonderful studio audience. And the first one comes from John. There he is.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My question is, should venues block the phone signal?
Ah, interesting. So this was to do with Martin Shaw, who's been urging theatres to tackle smartphones in the audience to prevent people from taking calls during plays. Seems reasonable. And he suggested venues should actually block signal from reaching the auditorium. What do you think, Francis?
I'm in complete agreement with this. If you go to a comedy club, particularly in places like New York and Texas, they actually put your phone in a bag. They ask you to switch it off and then they lock it. And I think that produces a much better atmosphere for the audience. They're far more engaged. They're far more wanting to actually see what's going on. They're far less distracted. To me, it's common sense.
Yeah, and that's a bit of also a name drop from you that you played Joe Rogan's club in Texas.
I didn't say that.
No, I've dropped it for you, to be nice. Because you were waiting for me to... You said before the show...
I haven't played the club.
Mention... Oh, you haven't played the club? But you hang out there at the back.
Yeah.
Saying, Joe, remember me from the podcast?
And then that's the moment he gets security just to leave me out.
No, but you've played some clubs over there.
Yeah, the Comedy Cellar and Gotham and all the rest of them.
OK, I've done the Comedy Store in LA and some of the other ones out there. You been to America and done gigs, Paul?
Yeah, no.
Can't be in the cool club.
Yeah. I've done Portsmouth, I've done Southampton and the Isle of Wight. Anyone heard of that?
But yeah, what do you think of this, Paul? Because it'd be an absolute nightmare. I mean, phones, they're bad enough at comedy gigs. But imagine you're in the middle of, like, Lear's closing monologue. You've just done 3 hours of King Lear. And you're just like wailing, and Cordelia's dead, and then someone's like, diddle-oo-doo, diddle-oo-doo. You know what I mean? You just go absolutely mad. What do you think?
Well, it's incredible, isn't it? I mean, it's infuriating, if anything. It's bad enough at a comedy club, but at least at a comedy club, you've almost got the right to reply. You can't come out of character if you're in a play. People who go to the theatre are supposed to be, intelligent in some way. I mean, obviously, it's been disproved over the years. However, it is just possibly one of the crudest things that you can do. How can you be so self-important, so self-entitled, that you think during a piece of Shakespeare or Paul Cox doing stand-up comedy, you can just talk to Barry about whatever?
I know. It's an art. I've seen your comedy. It's an art. People actually have broken off in the middle of monologues as well in Shakespeare when they get too angry. It's like, ill met by moonlight, proud to tell you, will you turn that bloody thing off? I'd actually quite like to see that. But, actually, Martin Shaw in the piece about this suggested having snipers in the boxes. It's the kind of thing I would say. But I'm like, it's like a serious actor saying that in a piece. Has it ever happened to you, Francis, when you're on stage and someone's just They just drive you mental in the audience on their phone or some other thing.
It's the worst when people are just there are some people, it's a very small minority, who somehow think that the world exists to revolve around them. And as comedians, it revolves around us.
Exactly. Yes. We've done the work.
Yeah, exactly.
We've got the ego, but we've put in the ears, so people are forced to look at us under the lights, and they have to listen to us.
Yeah, and you get people who are just talking persistently on a phone. It is, I think, death penalty.
Absolutely, I'm with you. And that's a second death penalty you've given out tonight.
Yeah.
The worst one is when people are talking quietly and the audience doesn't realise, but you can hear it. Yeah. Then you eventually go mad at them and everyone just thinks you're criminally insane. Yeah. Anyway, we've got another question from Mary. Hello. Oh, Mary, of course, it's Mary.
Is the term girl guides offensive?
So this was about Girl Guides. So Scout leaders are outraged, basically, that there's a woke style guide condemning terms like Girl Guides, and they've also said you're not supposed to say postman, postal workers becomes fireman. Hang on, that can't be right. Hang on, postman, postal worker, I don't know the rules anymore. Firefighters instead of firemen. It's all nonsense, and I don't know, what do you make of this, Paul? We're not allowed to say anything.
It is clearly nonsense, and I cover a lot of these stories doing headliners with yourself. And one thing I'd like to say is the people who are in charge of the Scouts, they don't know. They're being told, I'm pretty sure they are being told what they've got to do and policies that have got to be changed, and then they've got to indoctrinate it into people. But these places are for children. Can we just leave them alone? Can we make... It's like a lot of things at the moment. It's like people are trying to get into kids. I
think we're allowed to say that. Carry on.
Nice and early on, so that they can then take that message through for the rest of their lives.
I wondered where that was going, mate.
I didn't know. I had lots of things to say.
I didn't know, and neither did Ofcom. But Francis, I know you spend a lot of time thinking about the Girl Guides. Yes. This is the Scouts, right? And I think the Scouts allows women now, which is weird already. Not that they necessarily go probably, but now you're not even allowed to say Girl Guides.
No, you can't.
PC gone mad, mate.
It's PC, yeah, it's out of control. No, well, I'm in agreement with it. As we all know, there's no such thing as a woman. Anyone can identify as a woman. There should be non-binary guides.
Yeah.
That's what it should be. And you should just go in, whatever you feel like, and just join in.
Does anyone still go to these? Has anyone got kids? Do they still go to guides and scouts and clubs?
They still exist, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
But have they gone woke? Or are we paranoid culture warriors?
Most kids have not gone woke.
No,
I've got a 14-year-old, and she, despite the environment of the world she lives in, she's really not that woke, which I'm quite proud of. By the way.
But has the Cubs gone woke? Would you send your kid to Scouts, Cubs, Guides, whatever it is?
Yeah, of course. I mean, don't forget that we have been through. I grew up in the 80s. I mean, everyone on the TV was doing things with kids that they weren't supposed to do. So the fact that we're trying, the fact now we're trying to
Andrew Doyle on holiday again. When do they get to Beethoven? Carry on.
I'm not sure I should carry on with that particular strain of thought.
Carry on in general.
But no, I don't think. I think it is generally a safe space for them. It's a good place for them to be. They can learn a lot of things in life. Going to Scouts. I mean.
I never thought I'd hear you say safe space, Paul. You've changed.
I know. What's happened to me?
You've gone woke. All right, we've got another question from Marcus. And there he is.
Should Bradley Cooper apologise for his prosthetic nose?
His prosthetic nose in the film. This is about Bradley Cooper's depiction of the late West Side Story composer Leonard Bernstein, which attracted criticism over the size of his nose. Some have suggested it plays up to offensive Jewish stereotypes. Any thoughts, Francis?
Well, as a big-nosed man, I find it disgusting that this form of cultural appropriation exists. Big-nosed actors should only be able to play big-nosed parts.
Yes. But also, Francis, shouldn't you not be standing up for the big-nosed community who are not Jewish, who just want to play characters? I mean, why does everyone have to have the exact... they call this Jew face, which sounds so bad, I'm not even sure I'm allowed to say it. No. That's the word they've been using in the papers. And they say it's like blackface, but it's obviously not quite like it. But the family have said it's completely fine. They said, well, hang on, our dad did have quite a big nose. What's the problem with that?
Well, they're probably white supremacists, which is why they've got that, even though they're Jewish, that's why they've got that opinion.
Yeah, they've internalised white supremacy.
Yeah, they're internalised white supremacy. Yeah, it's classic. I just think this is so ridiculous. My favourite example of this was the actor Michael Sheen, who said only Welsh actors should be able to play Welsh characters.
I know.
And you think, how many Welsh characters are there?
And how many Welsh actors are there?
Yeah, exactly. You know, Wales is officially the least interesting country on earth. They produce about 3 people of merit, and one of them is a dragon, so...
Yes, and one of them's Neville Southall.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, for balance, I should probably say Wales is amazing, beautiful language, great people. Great people. What did you think, Paul, to this one? When
I first...
You got that a bit late. Is it like a delay, like a satellite delay? I do impressions, guys.
For those out there who don't know, we're actually in a stadium, aren't we? And it was the fans at the back that got it. Look, when I first read this story, I thought, oh, not another story about how someone with a small nose can't play someone with a big nose. But when I saw the 2 photographs together, it was like they'd stuck half a watermelon onto his face. It was over-accentuated, and it was asking for trouble. However, that aside, I don't think it's an issue. I think if you're, he did have a bigger nose than Bradley Cooper.
Yeah, I don't know. It can get a bit silly, like Francis says, with the Welsh thing. I mean, where would it end? It is acting. Acting is acting. You know, was anyone offended by this? No. Did anyone? Did you even hear about it? No, you've heard about it. Oh, you heard about it, but you weren't offended. OK, so I think we've dealt with that one. Oh, we've got another question from David.
OK, this one starts... Checkmate. So, does your gender impact on your ability to play great chess?
Ah, interesting. Controversial. So the World Chess Federation banned transgender women from competing in female events, but this move faced backlash from advocacy groups and supporters of transgender rights. The federation added that transgender players could still compete in the open section of its tournaments. I don't know if that really helps, but what do you think, Paul, transphobic chess?
Oh, it's incredible. I mean, I'm working class, so I don't know how it's played anyway. But one thing I have learned is there is a difference between men and women. And for once, this is a story about the transgender issue, which highlights that there is quite clearly a difference between men and women. It's got nothing to do with physicality, this. This is all to do with our complete biological, anatomical makeup, with the way that people think.
Are you saying that men have better brains?
Well, I'm not saying anything like that, because when I spoke about it could be that women have got better brains. Well, the reason they're going away to think about it is because quite clearly they believe there is a difference between men and women. I mean, this is nothing to do with physicality at all, is it? It's not like playing rugby or whatever. It's more akin to darts than it is anything else. Chess and darts aren't often compared. However, I've just done it.
That's your nearest analogy in your life.
I've just done it. But the point is, it's only brain matter, isn't it? That's the only difference between that differentiates these people.
Well, I thought about that.
And their gender.
Well, my theory, and it's only my little layman theory, is one thing is men are supposed to... It's not that men are higher IQ, but apparently there are more male ridiculously high IQ outliers in society, just these sort of freaks who have insane IQ, people like Andrew Dorr. These kind of insanely high IQ people are mainly men, which could be an issue for chess. But the other thing is, it is my theory, what if testosterone, see what you think of this theory, Francis, testosterone could make you more aggressive on the chessboard. Like Garry Kasparov had a kind of aggressive style. Andrew Tate's dad, Emery Tate, had a very, very aggressive chess style. So that could be another angle that I've just thought of. What do you reckon?
Well, as we all know, chess is a game of logic, and men are more logical, so...
There it is. He went straight in there. You thought the crowd would laugh, they just stared at you blankly.
Turns out I found where the line is, and I'm way over it.
Yeah. You're going to be wishing someone's phone will go off. But yeah, I mean, so you just think that men are more logical on that, therefore...
Well, look, I don't understand why this is... why can't trans women compete against women in chess?
Well, it's not clear to me either, but it does suggest... I mean, look, I think we're going to all have to realise at one point that men and women are different, as Paul says, and it just goes very deep. I mean, it is in every cell, isn't it? As scientists have said, it's in every cell of your DNA. So we're just going to have to realise that we are different and should never meet. We should be separate categories of
always
chess.
in the dark, at least.
Yeah, of sports, everything. All right, well, let's get one more question. I think we did really well on that one. From Chris, I believe.
Should the government fund Drag Story Hour?
Should the government fund Drag Story Hour? Interesting. So this is the Welsh government funded Drag Story Time for children last summer, but it's now come out that this funding came from a £7 million Summer of Fun scheme, which was intended to promote children and young people's social, emotional, mental and physical well-being. What do you make of this one, Francis?
I think they should fund it, because if anything that the government funds is complete rubbish. So what they'll do is they'll fund it, people will go along to it and go, this is absolutely terrible. I'm never coming back to this ever again. And then the whole thing just collapses.
You defeat drag story time from the inside.
Yeah.
Through funding it to death.
By making the council do it.
By making governments do it. Yeah, I mean, I sort of agree with that. My quasi-libertarian leanings kind of think that's right. What do you think, Paul?
Well, I mean, I don't care who's funding it or not. What I do care about is whether, you know, gay men dressed as women are dangling their bits in front of children for some sort of educational entertainment. Which
That's the most gammon sentence yet tonight.
I mean, it's craziness, isn't it? I mean, the whole history of drag is very interesting. There is a massive debate on where it came from. Was it ancient Greece because women weren't allowed on stage, the great old days, Nick, so men had to dress up as women? Or was it in the 1800s when they appeared in the minstrel show? And we know how divisive the minstrel show is. You and I had to buy our DVDs of the minstrel show online, didn't we? You just can't get them anymore.
It's very hard to get. Yeah, eBay. I don't know. What do you think? This is I feel like the most moderate on the panel tonight, by the way. But yeah, I mean, I think Drag Story Hour. It's I mean, you wouldn't really want your kids going to.
I don't think no. I don't think so, because I just think it's unnecessary. There's so many different ways that you can engage with children without being semi-naked.
Do you think it's been, in 30 seconds, Francis, do you think it's been overblown, though, the kind of right-wing people, conservative, get obsessed with Drag Story Hour and we look like fools to the sort of normal people?
I think there is something slightly distasteful about the whole thing. I don't think, in all seriousness, it is a government's place to be funding these types of things. The local government, in particular, has had massive cutbacks. There's a lot more that we can be funding and a lot more that we can be doing to help ordinary people. This is not one of those schemes.
All right. Pretty well put, I thought. So, we'll go to another break, but still to come on Free Speech Nation, I'll be giving you my take on why country singer Oliver Anthony has become an overnight sensation. See you in a minute.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often there will be difficult stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. So I thought we'd talk about a rare feel-good story in the culture war. Have a look at this clip.
I've been selling my soul, working all day, overtime hours for pay, so I can sit out here and waste my life away, drag back home and drown my troubles away. It's a damn shame.
So that was Oliver Anthony, a country singer who went from working in a factory to overnight viral success with his song Rich Men North of Richmond, which we just saw, which seemed to refer to the people running things up in Washington, D.C., about 2 hours' drive north of Richmond. Now, Anthony went from not even being on social media to 360,000 followers on Twitter, or X, as we now have to call it, and an estimated 6,000 people from around America flocking to his gig at the Morris Farm Market in North Carolina. Anthony said the last time he played the venue, about 20 people showed up. He also opened the gig by reading a psalm, which in internet language is incredibly based, and the song has clearly struck a nerve for its authenticity as well as its musicality. Anthony not only has a great voice, but when he sings, "I've been selling my soul, working all day, overtime hours for bull bleep pay," we're left in no doubt that is exactly what he's been doing. This, combined with references to Jeffrey Epstein, Anthony sings, "I wish politicians would look out for minors and not just minors on an island somewhere," and lyrics about obese people abusing welfare. If you're 5'3" and you're 300 pounds, taxes ought not to pay for your bags of fudge rounds, caught the attention of US conservative influencers who made the song go viral on Twitter, or X. This prompted Rolling Stone magazine, formerly focused on music but now more concerned with regime propaganda, to attack Anthony for what they called his Reagan-era talking points, barely mentioning the musical content. They also referred to Anthony's scathing lyrics about Epstein rather ambiguously as a real head-turner, as if they couldn't quite bring themselves to condemn a disgraced deceased paedophile. Anthony calls himself a political centrist, which is fine because this is not about partisan politics, but rather a blue-collar cry of rebellion against the out-of-touch architects of Western decline and despair. Yes, the song resonates with American conservatives, who are now the outsiders in a country that seeks to put their leader in jail, while their enemy in the White House seems to flaunt the untouchable corruption of his decadent family. And it clearly has establishment entertainment rags worried that this loose conservative movement is finally acting upon Andrew Breitbart's famous claim that politics is downstream of culture. Lately, the arts have been dominated by wokeness, as we all know, but the major players in the counterculture, which is a sort of loose coalition of conservatives, libertarians and classical liberals, are now realising that they need to create, or at very least enthusiastically promote, art that seems to be broadly on their side. That's an important change, but there's also something much deeper at work here. People around the world of all races and both sexes have been posting reaction videos to Anthony's song, and all of them are clearly incredibly moved. That's because the song taps into a core truth about that controlling force that seems to have been immiserating the majority of us over the last several years. Call it the regime, the deep state, the blob, the globalist agenda, the cathedral, whichever term you prefer. Anthony has put his finger on it in a way that only great art can. Living in the new world with an old soul, he sings, and says, "Wish I could just wake up and it not be true, but it is." How many of us have felt like that, especially since the COVID era? With Oliver Anthony, we have an authentic artist for our times, telling it like it is, whoever that may upset, and quite fittingly for a lone travelling singer, speaking out for the plight of the individual against the oppressive apparatus of power. And yes, having a pop at Epstein and some fat people while he's at it. All right, so that was my fairly long monologue. Francis, did you follow the Oliver Anthony phenomenon? What do you make of it?
Yeah, I did follow the Oliver Anthony phenomenon. I thought it was great, actually. I think it's always really heartening when you see somebody who hasn't been pushed forward by the mainstream media or the record companies, and people connect with it. That is the very essence of what art is about. It's reflecting the trials and tribulations of ordinary people and making them feel heard. So I loved it. It's a great story.
Yeah, and it was picked up on by the right. What I was trying to say in my monologue, it was picked up on by conservatives, but it wasn't necessarily conservative. And by the way, I said he was an authentic voice. He is. It turned out later his name's actually Chris, and his grandfather is called Oliver Anthony, and that's why he called it Oliver Anthony Music. He had no idea it would all blow up. So it's a kind of stage name, and that's the only thing that's not authentic about him. Paul, what did you make of it all?
It was very authentic. I agree with everything that Francis said. I like the fact that it's folk music. I like the fact that it's telling a tale. I really enjoy the fact that actually it's quite apolitical. The only people who have made this incredibly political are people like the Rolling Stone magazine, who have had a pop at it, which is incredible. I mean, it feels like, and I know a lot of people say this, it feels like I've sat still and the world has spun and I've gone nowhere. And things like the Rolling Stone have become sort of almost conservative, but they don't realise they have in their woke ways. They don't know what they're talking about. They're like, this music's not cool. It is cool. This music is punk. This music is anti-culture. This music is speaking up for little people, and that's exactly why it's doing well. We seem to have forgotten that meritocracy, whilst it gets chucked out, still exists. So people will listen to something, they'll watch some comedy, they'll see a TV show, and whether they are told not to like it or not, they will still enjoy it.
Yeah. And massive amounts of people have resonated with this. I mean, they filled 25 acres of parking space.
Incredible.
Thousands of people descended on this gig. Last time we played it, as I said, hardly anyone showed up. So it's tapped into something. And like you say, it goes beyond partisan politics. It's something to do with, like, this controlling... Ever since COVID, it's a sort of like something's control. It's like the globalists. People have different names for it. And it's a sort of global governance that sort of controls us all and has got us all pinned down. And we feel like the cost of living crisis, our dollar's worth less, as he says. Your dollar ain't bleep. Don't you think?
Well, it's like the sharks and the smell of blood, isn't it? What happened was, during that period of time, people got power that they were never used to. They'd always dreamt of, and they got a taste of it, and they just don't want to let it go. It happens all the time. The tale was told in Animal Farm, you know, by Orwell, where the pigs essentially were communists that rose up against humans, and then within about a year were just like the humans themselves, and that's what's happened.
Yeah, it's definitely a rebellion. And also, Rolling Stone didn't even mention the music. I did a review of it.
Incredible.
I know. I wrote for in the Daily Skeptic about it, and I tried to at least mention the musicality. I said which guitar he was playing and what the chords were. I tried to at least put a bit of that, and the tradition of country he's in, which is like Townes Van Zandt, Blaze Foley, Hank Williams, and this was just more than Rolling Stone even put in it. But Francis, there was also an inevitable backlash. Some people tried to cancel him, and some people said it was kind of cringe, and then people said, oh, rich men are actually supporting your taxes. That person didn't grasp what he meant, Washington, D.C. He didn't mean rich men. Did you follow the backlash to it as well?
I saw a little bit of the backlash. I mean, people are allowed to criticise it. They're allowed to say that that they don't like it. I think it's very interesting because, in many ways, what this shows as well is that country has been misrepresented. If you go over to the States, particularly the flyover states or states in the South, country has always been the music of the poor white guy.
Yeah.
So this is essentially country music going back to its roots, talking about people who are just about making a living. And what has happened now, because of everything, because of COVID, because of inflation, more and more people are living on those fringes of society where they're just about making a living. And this is incredible cut through as a result.
And do you think that some people on the sort of counterculture side are waking up to the fact that we need to do art? We can't just be like, here are the facts. Because, you know, the Conservatives boosted this in America. That's why it went viral. Do you think we need that in this, whatever this counterculture is, of sort of cancel people? Do we need to get a bit smarter about actually having quality art?
Of course we do, because it's not enough to just go on and do talking points. Look, talking points are all well and good, and we can discuss how comedy's not what it used to be, or how the movies aren't as entertaining, but you're going to have to provide an alternative at the end of this. And that's how you win, by providing an alternative that people are going to enjoy.
Yeah, and we've seen that, like Daily Wire are doing their own films now, proper movies, and I think people are going to have to start doing that because, you know, the other movies are just all so woke. And I thought this Oliver Anthony thing was great. Did you guys think this was good, this Oliver Anthony song? Did you see it? Yeah, some people liked it? OK. All right, cool. Well, next on Free Speech Nation, we'll talk to Alma Gadow, the ex-law lecturer who was sacked from the Open University for asking the wrong questions about gender ideology. But first, let's get the weather.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello,
I'm Dan Stroud, and this is your latest GB News forecast from the Met Office. So we have high pressure to the south and low pressure to the north and west. It kind of leaves the UK in between weather systems. But this area of low pressure is starting to actually push thicker cloud and outbreaks of rain in across Northern Ireland and northwest Scotland. Further to the south across England and Wales, largely clear skies. And under those clear skies, we do see some low cloud, mist and fog developing by dawn. Overnight temperatures remaining comfortably in double figures right the way across the board. Now, it's a bright start come Monday morning, with any low cloud, mist and fog across the south quickly lifting and breaking, leaving a pleasant enough day for many across the south. Further north, we have that rain edging in from the west, and that rain will become locally heavy by the course of the afternoon. Temperatures on Monday generally slightly higher than the values we saw on Sunday, with highs of 25 across the south and 21 further north. So that band of cloud and rain continues to sink south on Tuesday, and this kind of sort of sets the scene for the rest of the week as low pressure gradually wins out, turning increasingly showery for all by midweek, and temperatures peaking on Wednesday, particularly across the south and east. Bye for now.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. Now, law lecturer Alma Gadar was fired from the Open University, seemingly for raising questions about gender ideology. Managers allege that her so-called unreasonable questions had created an environment that was not inclusive, trans-friendly or respectful. She's now launching a legal case arguing that she's been unfairly dismissed, harassed and discriminated against because she rejects gender ideology and believes in academic freedom. And she joins me now. Welcome. So thanks so much for coming in, Alma. I know you've had a bit of a journey, but it's a really important case. Do you want to give us a quick summary of what happened?
Well, like you say, I was sacked because I questioned requirements to inculcate my students with a gender identity belief as part of teaching criminal law. So, like in so many places around the beginning of the decade, you get this surge in sort of critical social justice all over the place. You get it at the Open University, which then translates into the fact that the EDI department decides that they want to modify all current curriculum, as they put it, to make it anti-racist and intersectional and decolonised and decarbonised and all the currently fashionable ideologies.
Right.
And of course, these are politically contested ideas, but they were then to become the premise of all curriculum, of everything we teach everywhere, where no longer a proposition to discuss, but the premise that you just take as read.
Right.
Sorry.
No. So it was introduced by the diversity, equity and inclusion type people. And so you started, and it was just taken as read. So you started asking questions on the forum? What is it, this forum?
Yes, so this then sort of percolated down. The general missives from the EDI department were then sort of reflected in the fact that the law school where I was teaching decided that they were going to liberate the curriculum. That was going to be the core theme of the new law degree that they started a couple of years ago. And
liberate the curriculum?
Yes, there's a paper somebody wrote liberating the OU law curriculum, and we were told that specific things that we had to cover in tutorials had been included in our teaching materials in order to achieve broader objectives of liberating the curriculum.
It doesn't sound much like a liberation to the layman. It sounds like you're being told what to say.
No, and coming from a country that has seen two totalitarian regimes over the last century, I'm very suspicious of any liberations that take away freedoms rather than giving people freedoms.
Yeah, actually would be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned where you come. I mean, your grandfather was sentenced to death under the Nazis for a free speech issue. Is that right?
He was, yes, absolutely. And of course, that was after he decided to leave his university or not finish his studies at the official university, but when the official institutions became so compliant. So, whether you look at the Nazis or East Germany, in both cases, you have the totalitarian regime that just sort of puts its hand on the steering wheel of all institutions, including universities. And that's not a good thing in a university.
Yeah.
So in a free country, a free university is there to generate and disseminate knowledge, whereas in a totalitarian country, a captured university is there to generate and disseminate the knowledge that helps the regime and suppress any knowledge or ideas that might in any way question the regime. And of course, the frightening thing with ideas like liberating the curriculum is that suddenly we are no longer just there to generate and share knowledge on law. We are there to share knowledge on law insofar as it is conducive with these ideas that the EDI department wants to introduce into all current curriculum. And we are prohibited from covering any ideas that are relevant to our subjects that are not conducive to these ideologies that the EDI department wants to push.
Wow.
And of course, that's what I've been sacked for. So we were supposed to talk about gender as much as possible in our tutorials, but only in the way that is consistent with the ideology that the institution has decided to adopt. And when I said there is also an alternative view, some people do believe in gender identity, other people don't believe in gender identity. Some people believe in God, other people don't believe in God. If you talk about God, you have to mention the fact that some people believe in him and others don't. If you talk about gender identity, you have to talk about the fact that some people believe in it and some people don't.
Okay. And wow, it's shocking. So it's two things. Some things you have to say, some things you're not allowed to say. And by the way, your grandfather escaped, which we should say as well. That's correct, isn't it?
He survived, yes.
He survived,
yes.
But it's shocking that... Go on.
Yeah, he was sentenced to death in absentia, essentially, and biggest Dabo didn't find him before journalists. He surrendered, so he survived.
Yeah, but that's why it meant so much to you. I mean, you should be, obviously it's a good thing to be doing anyway, but that's why you're so passionate about it, perhaps. And also, there's a particular part I wanted to pick up on where you asked them to define their key concepts, such as LGBTQ+, and it became apparent that some treated minor attractions, so-called, as part of the diverse sexualities and gender identities that Open University law now seeks to centre. So minor attraction was something they were trying to promote. Is that right?
Not expressly. I mean, you get a growing body of literature, academic literature, that talks about minor attraction, i.e. paedophilia, as just another kind of gender, just another kind of sexuality. And then on the law module where I was teaching, they set students a task that involved a sexual relationship between an adult and a minor. And students could gain marks for describing adult and minor as each other's boyfriends, but they would have lost marks if they had in any way mentioned that there might be child sexual grooming going on, that the adult might be committing a sexual offence in having a relationship with the minor or anything of that kind. Wow. So I just asked the question, when we want to be inclusive of all sexualities, is that inclusive or exclusive of those who now describe themselves as minor attracted?
Yeah.
And management just weren't able to answer that question.
And you ended up being dismissed, and that was back in November. And now you launched this case with the help of the Free Speech Union. So where are you at now with all this?
Yeah, I mean the Free Speech Union have been absolutely amazing. I have to say, like a lot of gender critical academics have had to turn to the Free Speech Union. And, well, yes, we've launched the crowdfunder properly a couple of days ago, and it's happily been going really well. Over the past 2 days, people have donated, I think, £35,000, which just shows how much concern there is out there, and how much support there is. And of course, I'm incredibly grateful for people.
It's a very important case. So where can people find you then?
Well, if they Google my name, Almut Gaddo, if you can figure out how to spell that.
ALMUTGADOW, and they can find your crowdfunding.
It will probably come up, or if they go to crowdjustice.com and then look at the employment cases, they'll find it there, or if they follow the Free Speech Union on Twitter, they occasionally tweet about my case.
All right, well, it's a very important case. Thanks so much for coming in, Almut Gaddo. Up next on Free Speech Nation, this week's social sensations and unfiltered dilemmas with Francis Foster and Paul Cox.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "Nana, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's time for Social Sensations, the part of the show we devote to clips that have been going viral on social media. And first up is the video of the, Prince of Wales and Princess Charlotte apologising for the crime of not attending the Women's World Cup final in person. Let's have a look.
Lionesses, we want to send you a huge good luck for tomorrow. We're sorry we can't be there in person, but we're so proud of everything you've achieved and the millions you've inspired here and around the world. So go out there tomorrow and really enjoy yourselves.
Good luck, Lionesses.
All right, what do we make of that, Francis?
A pathetic excuse. Absolutely pathetic. You're president of the FA. These ladies have gone out and done really well, and you're just sitting there going, "Oh, I can't do it, I'm really sorry." If it was the men's, he'd be out there, wouldn't he? Yeah. If it was Lionel Messi, he'd be out there.
Yeah, but that answers its own question, because that just shows that the men's is thought of as more important. I think I said that earlier. He'd be there. But everyone's like, why isn't he there? The answer is because he's not that bothered.
No, it's because he's a disgusting representation of the patriarchy.
I see. What do you think?
They're booing him.
They've got a new right at the end, even though he said far worse things all night.
That was the line. Well, I mean, if you look closely in those bushes, you can see the gun pointing at his head.
Yeah.
But it looked contrived. It looked like he had to do it. I read officially yesterday, I'm not an official reader, it was an official statement, that it was because of climate change and flying out there would be disastrous.
Is that
true? For the climate,
I thought you were making a joke, like everything's because of climate change.
Well, the thing is...
Can't go to the football, because you're right, if he'd have gone there, especially Sunak as well, they'd have said, "Oh, wasting emissions."
Exactly.
And if you don't go, it's like, do you not care about women? So, yeah.
So, I mean, I can understand why they probably didn't go. They haven't got to go to every sporting event. I mean, the argument is always that they're entirely paid for by the taxpayer, therefore they must do what we want. But we should never trust the general public.
Yeah, great point. That's the motto of this show. All right, well, we may as well move on and look at the next video, which is this terrifying moment when an elderly woman comes face to face with a bear just outside her door. That's just awful, isn't it? I'm not quite sure why we're showing that. But that is the world, by the way, Paul, that people want. That's the world that George Monbiot and The Guardian want for England. They want to reintroduce wolves, bears to the countryside, into where I live in the lakes, and that would be every day.
I know they're fierce and dangerous creatures, but that bear looked quite cute and cuddly.
It was small.
He came round the corner and he was, "Oh, look, she's playing with me." She was much more terrifying than the bear at that point.
Right, they say they're more afraid of you than...
Yeah, they say that about all sorts.
She was more afraid of the bear.
I'm not disputing that. She was definitely...
Yeah, what do you make of that?
Well, look, having grown up in Croydon, mate, I saw far scarier things when I opened up my door. I think she needs to toughen up, mate, if I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, you're right.
It's a disgrace.
Absolutely. Well, you've said that about most things tonight. OK, so finally, here's a video of a police officer just pumping up her tyre. Don't you know? Yeah, we added that music on, by the way. No, we didn't. It was on the original. I mean, I don't know what to make of that. I mean, at least as a visible police officer actually on the street for once. What do you think of it?
Well, I was just glad that she wasn't dressed like a human rainbow, mate.
Yeah, I know. She wasn't doing police work, but she wasn't doing something actively awful either.
Yeah.
She was just doing something practical. What do you think, Paul?
Is there anything more British than laughing at a policeman or person?
Oh, good question. Apologising, probably.
Apologising, yeah, we do that a lot.
And not owning a home.
It was amusing, wasn't it? Some young, scrappy lads taking the mickey out of I don't know why I'm doing this voice. Taking the mickey out of sort of a police lady. I thought it was good fun.
OK. All right, well, I think that's probably about as much as we can squeeze out of that clip. I'm not sure when I'm allowed to move, but it's my first one, guys. But let's have a look at your unfiltered dilemmas. So our first dilemma is from Gilly, who says, I've been asked to be a bridesmaid at my best friend's wedding, but the dresses she's chosen to make us all look ridiculous. Do I speak out or suffer in silence? And it's so good you've come to 3 blokes to answer this. So we'll go to our bridal expert, Francis Foster.
Thank you. I'm glad that finally I've been appointed. You give me a question which I'm qualified to answer. What you should do, Gilly, is just turn up in your best dress, upstage the bride, give 2 fingers to everybody, and get off with the groom.
Nailed it.
As revenge.
What do you reckon, Paul?
Well, who wouldn't give that advice? I think Francis is absolutely right, Nick.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's a weird one. I don't really go to weddings. What happens like, if someone has a really expensive wedding, like, oh, you've got to fly to Dublin, and then we're going 10-pin bowling, then we're going paintballing. I go, tell you what, let's just not be friends anymore. You know what I mean? Because that's so expensive. I'm just going to call it here. Yeah. You're moving away. I'm never going to see you. And yeah, I don't know.
Nick, you're the one who wears 500 quid trainers.
I can't believe you've outed me. No, I cut my feet are wide, so I've had to buy some designer trainers from Ferragamo, who are sponsoring me for this. No. I can't believe it. They're not 500 quid, but they're expensive. What do you guys think? Is that a problem, the bridal dress thing? Good banter. All right. Mental note for next time, you can't really bring in the audience on unfiltered dilemmas. Let's do our second dilemma then, which comes from Helen. And Helen says, I'm single and live at home, so my friends always think that I'm free to house sit when they go on holiday. How do I say to them that I don't want to? Now, this one seems really easy to me. I would just go no and possibly lol, because I don't care at all. I'll just say no. But I think maybe, I don't know if it's sexist to say that women sometimes feel like more social responsibility. What do you think, Paul?
The theme of this whole section so far has been people being asked to do things, but not being around the courage to say no. Of course you say no. I mean, why wouldn't you? I mean, at the very least, Airbnb it out. So, yeah, no worries. 500 quid a week on Airbnb, jobs are good. And is it being looked after? Yeah.
Yeah, because house sitting could be really cool, like if your friends had, like, an awesome house. But it could also be, like, a weird... I see what they mean. They just think you're free, you're single, your life's meaningless, you have no children, why can't you just endlessly house sit for us?
All good points, Nick.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm single, but I'm actually personally offended by that.
So am I.
Yeah. I mean, but go on.
I was just going to say, the idea of being given... I mean, this is the point, you know, I guess these single people living on their own the whole time. If you're out there and you need somewhere to house it, the idea of having a house for myself for a week without any family there, just sitting in my pants, eating whatever I wanted...
That is a disgusting image, mate. There's about... everybody's switched off now, mate. No one's watching it.
Yeah. OK, well, I think we might have got enough out of that dilemma. Let's hope this next one is really good. And this one comes from Derek, who says, my friends earn a significant amount more than me and are always suggesting expensive activities, and I feel embarrassed to admit I'm struggling to keep up. What do I do? Now, this reminds me of that old Friends episode when they went to the restaurant, and remember that one? And, like, Ross is ordering something really expensive. Am I just dating myself here? Am I just a boomer here? Basically, Ross was ordering something really expensive, and so was Monica, but Rachel and Joey couldn't afford it. They all just had to go along with it and pretend like, yeah, I'll get the lobster, and then they're just panicking that that's their rent for this month. Have you been in this situation? Boy, you don't make much money.
I'm a secret millionaire. I've always got that.
You've got a massive garden, actually.
I know, mate.
That's why I said that.
It's not mine, actually. I keep breaking in every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
No, I mean, why don't you just tell them? They're going to know. He's probably the one with a university degree that means nothing. They're going to know he's not earning money. So just say that I can't afford it. And then if they say we're still going and pay for him, jobs are good.
Well, it depends what kind of activities it is, doesn't it? I mean, are they dragging on, like, yachts and stuff? Have you ever been in this position, Francis?
Mate, well, I was a stand-up comedian on the comedy circuit. I earned less than nothing. No, my advice to Derek would be just to work hard and get a proper job.
Wow, it's very Francis has gone very sort of traditional right-wing here tonight.
Yeah.
You're more of a centrist, but tonight you've just gone full Thatcherite. Get on your bike, get a job.
Exactly. Have a little bit of work ethic, Derek. And, you know, put some more shifts in, then you'll be able to order the lobster.
Yeah, you'll be able to be a professional podcaster like Francis. Not exactly a real job, is it, Francis?
Yeah, it is.
You're doing well. You've got trigonometry, you're doing well.
Yeah, I just go on there and just offer up opinions which I'm not qualified for, and I just spout nonsense.
It's how you got this gig.
Exactly.
And, do you ever... Does the constantly ever want to go somewhere and you can't? That's the co-host. Does he ever say, let's go somewhere, and you're like, I can't afford it?
Does he ever go somewhere? No, because he's quite tight, actually.
All right. Well, we've just got a quick pop at Constantine right at the end of the show, which is what I was aiming for. Thanks, Paul, and thanks to the studio audience. I think we've pretty much time to wrap it up. Well, let's hope it is, because that's what I'm doing. Thanks for joining us on Free Speech Nation. This was the week when Graham Linehan's comedy gig was cancelled twice. America rediscovered the power of the protest song, and Snow White got woke and went broke. So thanks to Francis Foster and Paul Cox, and Francis is actually hosting Headliners later tonight, so stick around for that. And thanks to all my guests. We had some great interviews, and if you want to join us live in the studio and be part of our brilliant audience, please go to www.sroaudience.com and stay tuned for Mark Dolan tonight, which will feature Leo Kearse. And don't forget the headline is on 11 p.m. But for now, thanks for watching Free Speech Nation. Good night and God bless.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GBNews.
Hello, I'm Dan Stroud, and this is your latest GB News forecast from the Met Office. So we have high pressure to the south and low pressure to the north and west. It kind of leaves the UK in between weather systems. But this area of low pressure is starting to actually push thicker cloud and outbreaks of rain in across Northern Ireland and northwest Scotland. Further to the south across England and Wales, largely clear skies. And under those clear skies, we do see some low cloud, mist and fog developing by dawn. Overnight temperatures remaining comfortably in double figures right the way across the board. Now, it's a bright start come Monday morning, with any low cloud, mist and fog across the south quickly lifting and breaking, leaving a pleasant enough day for many across the south. Further north, we have that rain edging in from the west, and that rain will become locally heavy by the course of the afternoon. Temperatures on Monday generally slightly higher than the values we saw on Sunday, with highs of